I really like the idea of complicated but easy woodworking. So I made a table that only requires right angle cuts, doesn't require much precision in those cuts, and they can be made with basic power tools and not a lot of clamps. I made an all wood version of this table and one that incorporates a salvaged glass door from an old shower along with some stone tile. I had some ripped down cedar that was 1.5 by 1.5 inches. I made all the cross cuts using my circular saw guided by my Kreg portable CrossCut. Miter saws are great, but this project is all about doing a lot with the basics. I sanded the pieces as I cut them because I really didn't have a design worked out ahead of time, and I wanted to be able to feel a sense of freedom to start assembling right away and didn't want to create places that were going to be difficult to get in and sand later. Assembling starts with the legs. I wanted a way to lock the stone tiles to the wood without having to glue them to it or drill holes through the stone, which is always kind of a little bit dicey. I used 2.5-inch long finish screws to screw short spacers in between the 4 vertical elements that will comprise each leg. Pre-drilling your holes is a good idea to reduce the chance of the wood splitting. I'm only doing 1 screw at a time. Because I know that there's so many pieces and screws going in, I'm going to trust these additional components to add the stiffness and rigidity. None of the pieces are perfectly straight, and that's okay. I'm just trying to connect them while enjoying this Jenga-esque aesthetic. I really like this way of designing because I really just focus on the next step. I didn't worry about connecting the table legs until I had 4 of them ready to go. Now I can place them and look for opportunities to add cross supports that will provide stability, allow for the integration of the stone tile, and look cool. I tried a few different combinations, moved some pieces around, checked to make sure the tile would fit, and then drove in some screws to fix the pieces in place. This Kreg right angle drill attachment is really handy on projects like this. It just gives you more options for driving in fasteners in tight to reach places. I really like the combination of the hammer fist, which is almost like brass knuckles for making, which allows me to get the screws started, and then I can follow up with the right angle attachment. These stone tiles are 1 foot by 2 feet, and they're left over from my new house, which by the way is coming along nicely, and I should be ready to show it off in a month or 2. I cut the stone on my tile saw. Once again, right angle cuts, pretty easy. And these stone pieces slide right in between the elements of the legs. The stone is about 3/8 of an inch thick, so I had to rip down some cedar to just a little over an inch to make the strips that will keep the stone nice and secure. Using a softwood like cedar makes this project quite easy. There's going to be some warpage here and there, pieces aren't going to be cut perfectly straight or perfectly accurately, and so it doesn't take that long to sand a piece down if the fit's too tight when you first cut it. All I want is for the stone panels to hide the sides of an ugly plastic flower pot. I have made completely sealed stone planters before. Check out some of the other videos on this page to see how I did that. I just thought the table would be easier to move and set up if the planter didn't have to be watertight. Once I checked to make sure that all the stone panels were aligning nicely, I started adding in the supports for the tabletop. Once again, I'm not really pre-planning anything. I'm just cutting pieces that seem like they're about the right length, installing them symmetrically, stepping back to see if I like the way it looks, and then repeating the same thing on the other side. This approach reduces woodworking to a process more similar to playing with Lego. I focus on making some pieces, I play around with the pieces, adjust the size on the pieces, and then just keep building. If I was a super disciplined and rigorous designer, I would have drawn this all out before and would then have had a plan to make sure no screw heads were visible from the exterior. But I enjoy sort of making things up as I go, and I trusted that the majority of the screw heads would be hidden by the pieces on the outside. Whenever I had the option, I screwed from the bottom up, but in general, I don't really sweat the perfection of hiding every fastener. I didn't have any strict rules about proportions or geometry, or about the exact length of each little cantilever. In general, I just picked what I felt looked good and used scrap pieces as spacers so that the overhangs were relatively consistent. I also periodically checked to see how much things were bending, and when I saw a point of weakness, I just slid in an additional support and then screwed it in place. I was very confident about the way I wanted the top to look, and I love how it kind of branches out like a tree. I want the base to be stable, but not to stick out as much as the top. So I just made some guesses about how far the base should extend, cut some pieces, flipped the structure over, and screwed those pieces into place. This table is going outside, and cedar certainly is an excellent wood choice for outdoor use, but I just added a coat of penetrating oil that's rated for the exterior, just to give it a little bit of extra durability. There's a lot of nooks and crannies in this, so I oiled up the base and the boards for the top separately. For the all wood top, I started with some pieces that were about 4.5 inches wide. I locked these into place and then looked at thinner strips that I could evenly space in between them. A table saw is ideal for ripping pieces down to fit a specific width, but it's really not that hard to clamp a few boards down and rip pieces with a circular saw. Originally, I thought I would leave these gaps wide enough so that light could trickle down in between them to provide the right combination of light and shade for a plant underneath. I really like the all wood version of the table, and I think a plant like this would be okay, but visually not enough light was coming through and the plant just looked a little dark from the side. So I pulled this old shower door out of our scrap bin. We've had this piece of laminated glass for quite some time, and after removing the hardware, I just cleaned it up a little bit and was pleased to see it was no worse for wear. The glass is almost 1/2 inch thick, so I ripped some cedar to be 1 inch by 1.5, and then just screwed a little skinny strip along the outside to keep the glass from sliding. I oiled up these rails and then placed the glass. The glass is heavy and it really flattened out the rails. Now I can screw the rails into place in exactly the position that's optimal for the glass. Projects like this really encapsulate what I love about woodworking as a hobby. It's really nice when you can make something that looks pretty cool, but doesn't require intense focus to figure everything out beforehand. Because there isn't any wood glue, this project is very forgiving. You can add a piece, step back, take a look, realize it's not quite what you wanted, unscrew it, trim it, or cut a new piece that's longer, and improve the project as you go. This project was inspired by a piece of Japanese architecture. Let me know in the comment section if you know what I'm talking about, and check out the tools and accessories that I used in the description box below. Thanks. Bye.